Have you noticed that on cooking shows, the raw chicken looks so much more appealing than the chicken that you unwrap at home? Because someone took the time to clean that chicken, they can start cooking immediately. Recipe writers assume you know how to do this, or maybe they'll remind you by telling you, hey, trim the chicken. It's an important step, and I'm going to show you everything they assume you know. This video really is just about prepping raw chicken, so you're going to see a lot of bones and skin and stuff. If that's not for you, that's okay. I'm going to start with whole chicken prep, and after I get this bird into the oven, we'll move on to chicken parts. So when I'm working with a whole chicken, here is what I do. First up, I want to make sure that I check inside the cavity. These birds often come with spare parts. You don't want to just leave them in there and accidentally cook them. After that, I want to clean up any extra skin and fat that is unnecessary. You can use knives or a pair of scissors. It's really up to you. Scissors are pretty great for this. When it comes to trimming a whole chicken, there are a couple of spots I always check. There's fat that's kind of tucked at the bottom of the cavity, and I like to use scissors to just cut it off. These bits of trim that we're pulling off, they're actually really great for making gravy. They have a lot of chicken flavor. If you're interested in that recipe, you want to look for our broiled chicken with gravy. So there's a little bit of extra skin here. You could leave it in place or you could take it off. I don't want to see that in the finished bird, so I'm just going to trim this entire bit off. That's the bottom side. Up at the top where the neck is, you're gonna find some fat deposits up there too. Again, I like to just use shears to just trim that off. And by the way, if you're cleaning up, say, a turkey for Thanksgiving, the same areas are the areas you wanna check when you're trimming your turkey. There's a little bit more fat up here. And that's about it, really. This chicken is pretty much ready to roast. Sometimes these wings come tucked, sometimes they're kind of splayed out like this. If they are like this, and your recipe says tuck the wings, you just kind of fold it back and behind. Sometimes recipes will ask you to tie the legs. You can or you can't. We'll get to tying in just a second. The other way to roast a chicken is to butterfly or spatchcock it. To do this, you're gonna have your bird. You're gonna flip it over so that the backbone is facing up. And when you spatchcock, you're removing this backbone so that you can open it up. This is another good place for kitchen shears. I always start at the bottom, but you don't have to. You can definitely start at the top if you like. It doesn't really matter. But we're gonna snip our way up the length of the backbone, kind of sticking close to the bone. You don't wanna scoot too far this way because you're gonna hit the hip bone and it's really hard to cut through that. The other thing about this is don't try to power your way through in like 2 snips. It's actually a lot easier on your hands if you do a lot of little snips. Once you've cut your way up one side, you're just going to do the same on the other side. If it's easier, feel free to rotate the bird. And again, little short snips. You can use 2 hands if you'd like, but I never try to power all the way through because it requires a little bit of pressure to get through, and it's just a lot easier this way. So bits like this backbone, really great for soups and stocks, really great for gravies. If you have the space, I definitely recommend freezing them until you have enough to make whatever it is you're trying to make. Now that the backbone's removed, you can flip it over. You want to tuck those wingtips. At this point, we want to get a little bit of oil on here. I'm looking for about a half a teaspoon. Next up, we're going to season this with a teaspoon of salt and half a teaspoon of pepper. And then we'll flip it over and season the inside with just a half a teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to eyeball this pepper. And yes, before anyone gets in the comments, they're cutting out all the bits where I go run to wash my hands before I pick up this pepper mill. Now that the bird is seasoned, we're going to tie the legs. And this tying tip, it applies to tying the legs of a butterfly chicken, or maybe you're doing a pork loin roast and you need to tie that. You want to start with a piece of twine. I always loop it over twice. And what I mean by that is I put the end under once, and then I put it under again, and only at this point do I actually tie it. And what that does for me is this knot is going to stay taut so that I can secure it without having to have someone come and like put a finger here and hold that knot in place. It's a really useful tip for any tying that you have to do. And then I just want to trim off the excess. Great. So this bird is ready to cook. I'm going to wash my hands one last time and then we'll get going. So we're making my 1 hour broiled chicken and we're going to cook it in a skillet. I'm going to get a little bit of oil in here. and turn it on. That oil is just to tell me when the skillet is hot. I'm looking for it to smoke. The nice thing about this recipe is we're not going to wait for the oven or the broiler to heat up. Instead, we're going to wait for our skillet to heat up. It goes a lot faster. And then we can just put our chicken in the skillet in the cold oven, and flip on the broiler. So that chicken's going to take about 45 minutes to cook. And halfway through, I'm going to go in and give that skillet a spin so that the bird cooks evenly. Meanwhile, let's talk about prepping chicken parts. So first up, we have split breasts. The reason these are called split breasts is when the butcher creates these parts for us to buy, they start by removing the legs and the wings. They get rid of the backbone, and then what's left is the breast. They will then just find the keel bone that separates these two breasts and cut down one side of it to split the breast and thus give you split breasts. What that means, though, is that you'll often find that one side has just the rib cage and the other side has a keel bone as well as a rib cage. The prep for these is really easy. I'm going to show you two ways to do it. One with a pair of kitchen shears, the other with a knife. Which you use is really up to you. In both cases, what we want to do is get rid of any excess skin that's just flopping around. It's not doing us any favors. We're going to cut that off. And if you're using shears, you just snip it off. There's very little fat to deal with. There's a tiny bit under the skin. I always leave that in place. It almost self-bastes when it's roasting or cooking. If you are especially particular, you can remove the fat that kind of runs along the side. You can often just pull it right off. And then I actually use the shears to cut the fat off, but also the random bits of rib that live alongside the breast. There's not really much, if any, meat there. That part just takes up space. I'm just going to take my shears and just cut straight up. Up here, you might find a little bone. If you do, just give it a twist and then you can cut that off. So you can see just how different they look when you take the time to trim. It's just neater and tidier looking. Let's do this again, but with a knife. So here's our little line of fat over here, and I'm just gonna run my knife right alongside it. And then for the bone, I prefer to make sure that I'm cutting through the skin and whatever meat is here first. That's kind of the squidgy bit. The bone is going to stay put. If you were to approach it from the other side and try to cut through the bone, that skin and meat below is going to move around and it's much harder to get through cleanly. So you want to start with it bone side down. I want to gently cut through all of that part first till I get to the bone. And then once I'm down there, I set my knife in place and press. We've got a little pocket of fat up here. Let's get rid of that. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. One little tip if you want a really lean skin-on chicken breast. If you check out the chicken, you'll see that there are areas where it is super translucent under the skin and areas where it's a little bit more opaque. Under those opaque areas, that's where you're going to find the fat deposits. And to help that fat render and escape better, you can just dock that area. And it usually just takes, 4 or 5 pokes. You can use the tip of a sharp knife or even just a skewer. So why choose split breasts? Well, the skin and the bone, they act as protectors for the delicate white meat that's tucked between them. I recently developed a recipe that calls for this cut that makes use of that. If you're interested in trying it, hop on the app and look for skillet roasted chicken breasts with rustic orange thyme sauce. So that's it for bone-in breasts. When the butcher removes the skin and gets rid of that bone, you end up with boneless, skinless breasts. Now, these are the most popular cut of chicken in the US because they're easy to find, easy to prep, they're really lean, and they can be used in a lot of different ways. These are fine to cook as is, but there are a few small things you can do to get the best out of your chicken breast, and it's all about dealing with this taper. By the time this thicker part up here is fully cooked, this bottom bit, it is dry and stringy. The solution is to flatten this top part. When you're pounding a chicken breast, I like to set it so that the side where the skin was, it's down. You can put a sheet of plastic wrap on top, So this isn't necessary, but plastic wrap is just gonna keep chicken juices from flying around your kitchen. When it comes to tools, you've got two options. You can use a meat pounder. If you don't wanna buy one of these, you can use just a heavy duty skillet, works great. The only thing you really need to know, and honestly this matters more for if you're trying to thin out tougher cuts of meat, you don't wanna pound just straight down. You wanna kind of push to the side just the tiniest bit. It'll make all of this go a lot faster. I don't want to take this down until it's just 1/4 of an inch thick. That's going to be really wide and awkward to cook, but I am going to pound it lightly just to make sure that this is a little bit closer in size to that. That's it. It's nice and uniform and ready to go. So there's another way to get chicken pieces that are even across, and that's just cutting them. So let's move on to that. I've got my chicken breast here. This time, rather than pounding, we're just going to divide this in half. I actually want to scoot it pretty close to the edge of the board. You need a sharp knife, and the key is, rather than sawing your way across, you're going to want to start with the heel of the knife on the breast, and you're going to draw the knife through. You're not going to make it all the way through the entire length of the breast, and that's okay. Once your knife is all the way through, you'll peel it up, set the knife in place, and repeat that action. It gets you much more even pieces. I find that for this, because I want to try to control where the tip of the blade is, as well as where the belly of the blade is, putting my finger on the spine gives me a little bit more control all the way down the knife. So we'll start over here. So you don't have to press very hard. In fact, you shouldn't, because that's going to make it harder to draw the knife through. And if you're having trouble with this, freezing the chicken for maybe 15 minutes is going to really help. That just kind of firms up all the proteins, and so there's less squidging around. Usually when you're splitting a breast, you want it to be somewhere between 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick. If you have a really thick breast, it's okay to throw some plastic on top and pound it slightly to get it to the right thickness. Sometimes you don't want a whole breast. You want thin little pieces that cook through quickly. And to do that, what you're going to want to do is divide your chicken breast into 3 pieces. The first cut is going to be made horizontally, and you're just cutting in half. So now you can see how much thicker this is than this. We're actually just going to divide this part in half horizontally. Just like before, light pressure to hold the chicken breast in place. Your fingers on the spine, and you're setting your chicken close to the edge of the board so that there's space for your knuckles, and that same drawing motion. Again, doesn't matter how many strokes it takes to get through, as long as you get there. Perfect. Now, I would probably pound this lightly to get it to be the same size as these. Here at ATK, we really like dividing our chicken breasts into 3 smaller pieces for a lot of recipes. Chicken franchise is one of them. These pieces are going to be lightly coated in flour and egg and then fried, and it's just a lot easier to handle smaller pieces of chicken. So that's it for chicken breasts. Let's move on to the dark meat. So we're going to start off with thighs. They're typically sold bone-in, skin-on, or boneless, skinless. One of the things that kind of drives me crazy about bone-in, skin-on thighs is in the package they look like this, neat little tidy bundles, but when you get home and open them up, there's just all this extra junk on there, and you should definitely trim all of that off. It's just taking up space. Fat's going to render out, and you're going to have to skim that fat later. If you're grilling, it's going to cause flare-ups. When I'm removing the skin, I want to make sure I'm leaving just enough to cover the meat that's underneath, no extra. So let's start over here. The meat ends right about here, so that's where I'm going to cut. Sometimes it's easier to kind of do it with the skin side down. You can see exactly where the trimming needs to happen. So on this side, I don't need anything outside of that part, so all of this comes off. And so you end up with something a lot neater. And then you also want to get rid of any extra fat. The fat tends to live right under the skin. I like to use my knife to kind of push it down, and then I just cut through. There's one more fat deposit right here. I'm just going to kind of dig that out. So this is pretty much ready to go. Something that I am seeing more and more at the supermarket these days are skin-on boneless thighs. There are a number of recipes where you do want kind of the gelatin from the skin to render out into the braising liquid, say, or you want to crisp up that skin, get some color on it. If you can't find those pieces, here's how to remove that bone but leave the skin in place. You want to find the bone. It's going to be right here. So I want to use the tip of my knife to cut down till I find that bone, and make sure you get all the way up to the top. So you can see it right here. And then I'm going to use my fingers to pull that meat away and slide my knife along the bone to kind of gently ease the meat off. And then once you've released, I don't know, 90% of it, you can just slip your knife beneath and gently wiggle your way underneath to release. Same deal on the other side. Last thing, there's always a little bit of cartilage left up here. You want to make sure you get rid of that. So now you have a skin-on boneless chicken thigh. One of my favorite recipes that uses this cut of chicken is Andrea Geary's Real Deal Chicken Teriyaki. Give it a try. The skin is fantastic. When you purchase boneless, skinless chicken thighs, the bone has been removed by the butcher and then they just pull the skin right off. When I work with boneless, skinless chicken thighs, I look for fat deposits in 3 spots. There's always going to be a little bit of fat left on the smooth side where the skin was. You can see it right here. And you can just use your knife to gently trim it off. You're almost scraping it off. You don't really have to cut it off. Got a little bit more right here. Let's get that off. And then on the underside, there's a little pocket up here that we want to remove. And I think I took it out earlier, but usually there's a little pocket right, oh, here it is, right in here. So let's just dig that out. When I'm removing the fat from between the muscles of a thigh, it's really a good idea to use the point of the knife. But that's it. That's how you clean a boneless, skinless thigh. Last up, drumsticks. Now, these are kind of an underused cut. They're pretty affordable, and I really think everyone should be using them more. The prep is also really easy. Often you don't have to do anything at all. There's very little extra fat that has to get trimmed. I am noticing there's a little bit of cartilage here. I like to take that off. And then here, we're going to take off this extra skin. We don't really need it. So I have one tip for you when it comes to drums. These are a dark meat that requires a little bit of cooking to become tender, and you can kind of speed up that process by slashing the drums. So when you do this, there's a lot of meat here that kind of squidges around, and so I like to kind of hold it pretty firmly and tautly, and then you want to just kind of slide your knife along, making sure you hit the bone. We're going to do one more. And then I'm going to flip it over and do this side as well. Again, you want to hold that skin taut so that it's not sliding around as you're trying to make this cut. This is especially important if your knife isn't super sharp. And that's it. These are ready to go. A really great recipe that uses this technique and this cut is Sarah and Namsoon On's honey garlic chicken. You can find that recipe in their book Oma or look for it in the ATK app. So that's it for prepping chicken parts. Let's go check on that chicken. The color on this chicken is gorgeous. There's a nice amount of pan juices in here. I'm going to turn those into a sauce. So first I want to get this bird out of this pan. And we're going to flavor this chicken juice with just a clove of smashed garlic and some thyme. We'll give that a quick swirl and just let those flavors infuse into those juices. So while this chicken is resting, let's talk about tools. Now, my chef's knives tend to be pretty small. They're not super long. They're not especially tall. If you own a larger knife, though, if it's longer or just taller, that can make it pretty tricky to maneuver the blade kind of where it needs to go to make this go smoothly. If that's the case, you might want to consider swapping to something smaller like this. This is a petty. You could use a boning knife, but having less blade to manage and having something that's narrower will make this process go a lot smoother. So this chicken's rested for 15 minutes and we can start carving. Step 1 is to just remove the twine. I tend to start by removing the legs, and it's pretty simple when the bird has been spatchcocked. You just kind of lift it up and cut along the breast and it should just pop right off. As with all knife work, you want to move the food to accommodate your arm and make it feel ergonomic and not awkward. So we rotate the bird, lift the other leg, and just cut down. So that's our leg quarters. We're going to split them into a drumstick and a thigh. And to do that, you want to flip it over. There's usually a little line of fat that runs between the two, and you just set your knife on top of it, cut straight down. That's our first set. Second set is going to be right here. So that's the dark meat. Now we're left with the breast. For the wings, you can carve them off, or you can just kind of pop them out and then make a quick slice. You want to just grab, pull it up, and then kind of follow your way along that bone. So we'll pop and then quick slice. So those are our wings. Last up, we have the breast meat. You could just cut straight through the bone and leave these bone in. It's kind of nice to carve the breast off the bone for your guests though, so that's what we're gonna do. There's a keel bone kind of running right down the center, and I wanna run my knife on one side of the bone to kind of release it, and we'll spin it around and come up top. There is going to be another bone, it's part of the wishbone, and it's going to be right in here. You want to leave that on the carcass and kind of run your knife along that. And the goal here is to just follow the curve of the ribs to release the breast. There we go. For the other side, same deal. We cut alongside the keel bone all the way up till we hit the wishbone, spin it around, come back this way, and then it's just sliding that knife along the bones to release the breast meat. You'll notice that I am rotating the bird quite a bit so that I can see what I'm doing. Don't worry about holding the food steadily in place. You want to move it around so that you can see where your knife is and what it's cutting through and what it's not cutting through. It's going to make for a lot less waste. Here's that. So we have just the front of the rib cage. You can toss this. There's some nice chef snacks on here if you're feeling a little peckish. You can also just freeze this. It's really great for stocks, even though it's cooked. So the last thing I do is to just divide these breasts in half so that if folks want, they can have a little piece of dark meat and some white meat, which is exactly what I'm going to plate up for myself. This chicken smells great. Let's give it a try. Give it a quick swipe. Considering there's just salt and pepper on there, it's so tasty. That skin, it's so well rendered. There's a little bit of crispness to it where I didn't pour sauce over it. And that sauce, it was actually pretty easy to make. We did a good job cleaning that bird, and so there wasn't a ton of fat to remove. It's really picked up the flavors of the thyme and garlic. It's delicious. Understanding how to prep your chicken is really important. It can mean that your chicken is going to cook more evenly. Often it means you will have less skimming and defatting to do. And it means your food just looks prettier because you took the time to make sure it looked good before you started cooking. You can find all the recipes I mentioned in the ATK app or use the links in the description below. I really hope this was useful, and if it was, maybe you want to see how to prep other proteins. If so, let me know in the comments below.